Coxeter Groups, Lecture 6, Symmetric Groups as Coxeter Groups. Let us start with describing our setup. Let n be a positive integer, and then we denote by n underlined the set consisting of all integers between 1 and n. So it consists of 1, 2, 3, and so on, all the way up to n. Consider the symmetric group Sn of all permutations of the set n underlined. The elements of Sn are bijective functions from n underlined to n underlined. So if we have such a bijective function sigma, we usually write it that it maps an element x in n underlined to the element sigma of x. The group operation is composition, which we denote by circle, or sometimes we simply omit it and write two elements of our group after each other, meaning the composition of these elements. Let us note that we compose functions as functions from right to left. In particular, applying the composition of sigma after tau to an element x outputs the element sigma applied to tau of x. There are several ways to denote or depict permutations. One usual way is the so-called two-row notation, where in the first row we write elements from n underlined, and in the second row we write the images under our permutation sigma in Sn. So for example, here is an element in S7, sigma it sends 1 to 3, 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 6, 5 to 5, 6 to 4, and 7 to 7. There is also the so-called one-line notation, where we just keep the second row of the previous table. So the same sigma can be denoted as 3, 1, 2, 6, 5, 4, 7, and that's a permutation of the elements between 1 and 7. That's the one-line notation. There is also the cycle notation. Each permutation is a product of cycles with disjoint supports. So the same sigma as above is a product of the cycles 1, 3, 2. So 1 is sent to 3, 3 to 2, and 2 to 1. Then the cycle 4, 6, 4 is sent to 6 and 6 to 4. And then the cycle 5, 5 is sent to 5, and the cycle 7. And sometimes, or actually quite often, the cycles of length 1 are not written, so they are omitted. So the same sigma can be written as the cycle 1 to 3 times the cycle 4, 6. Next, let us talk about transpositions. A transposition is a permutation of the form ij in the cycle notation, where I and j are two different elements of n underlined. So our permutation just swaps two different elements I and j. Let us note that ij is equal to ji, and each transposition is an element of order 2. It's not the identity, and it squares to the identity. A transposition of the form I, I plus 1 is called an elementary transposition and denoted as I. So here I is an element between 1 and n minus 1. So we have n minus 1 elementary transpositions, and in total we have n choose 2 transpositions. If we have an element sigma in Sn, which is given using one-line notation, then the outcome of composing sigma with the transposition ij, where ij is on the left, this is obtained from the one-line notation of sigma by swapping the elements I and j in that notation. At the same time, in the opposite order, so first ij and then sigma, this is obtained from the one-line notation of sigma by swapping the numbers which are at the places I and j. So for example, if we take our sigma from the previous slide, 3, 1, 2, 6, 5, 4, 7, then 3, 4 after sigma is equal to 4, 1, 2, 6, 5, 3, 7. So we have 3 and 4 in our one-line notation, and we swap them. While sigma after 3, 4, after this transposition, is equal to 3, 1, 6, 2, 5, 4, 7. We have the elements at places 3 and 4, and we swap them. And from this description, it is clear that elementary transpositions generate the symmetric group Sn. Now let us talk about inversions. Let sigma be an element in Sn. A pair consisting of two elements I and j, I is smaller than j, and both elements are between 1 and n. This pair is called an inversion for sigma, provided that sigma of I is greater than sigma of j. So I is smaller than j, but sigma of I is greater than sigma of j. Let us denote by inv sigma the number of inversions for sigma. This is the cardinality of the set consisting of all pairs I, j, such that I is smaller than j and sigma I is greater than sigma j. Here is an elementary observation. So if I is an element between 1 and n minus 1, then inv of sigma times Si is our elementary transposition of I and I plus 1, so this number is equal to inv of sigma plus 1 if sigma of I is less than sigma of I plus 1, and this is equal to inv sigma minus 1 if sigma of I is greater than sigma of I plus 1. So indeed, multiplying with Si on the right, we just swap the elements and positions I and I plus 1, and we have sigma of I at position I and sigma of I plus 1 at position I plus 1. So if the former was less than the later, then the new element has one inversion more. We create an inversion. And if the former was greater than the later, then we remove this inversion, so we get one inversion less. Let us denote by capital S the set consisting of all elementary transpositions of the elements S1, S2, and so on, Sn minus 1. And recall that all transpositions are elements of order 2, so we have a set of elementary transpositions, it generates the symmetric group, and so we can speak about the lengths with respect to this generating system consisting of elements of order 2. So this is the length function which we denote by L. So here is our connection between the lengths and the number of inversions. Proposition: for any element sigma in Sn, the length of sigma is equal to inv of sigma, to the number of inversions for sigma. Proof: to start with, if we have the identity, then its length is 0 and the number of inversions is 0, because all elements are in the order. On the previous slide, we saw that the number of inversions for sigma Si is always less than or equal to the number of inversions for sigma plus 1, because it's either plus 1 or minus 1, so it's less than or equal to plus 1. And from this it follows that the number of inversions for sigma is less than or equal to the length of sigma simply by induction. We proved the opposite equality by induction on the number of inversions of sigma. The basis of induction: if the number of inversions of sigma is 0, then sigma is the identity and the length is 0. So the basis is trivial, there is nothing to prove. For the induction step, let us assume that the number of inversions of sigma is k plus 1, and this is greater than 0. Then there must exist an I such that sigma of I is greater than sigma of I plus 1. And so the number of inversions for sigma Si by the previous slide is equal to k plus 1 minus 1, which is k. And then by our inductive assumption, this is equal to the length of sigma Si. And consequently, the length of sigma is less than or equal to k plus 1, because sigma is obtained from sigma Si by multiplying with Si. This completes the proof. We can also combinatorially describe the right descents in permutations. So, corollary: for sigma in Sn, the right descent set of sigma consists of all elementary transpositions Si for which sigma of I is strictly greater than sigma of I plus 1. Proof: if sigma of I is greater than sigma of I plus 1, then sigma Si has less inversions and so the length is smaller, which means that Si is in the right descent set. On the other hand, if sigma of I is smaller than sigma of I plus 1, then sigma Si has more inversions, and so the length of sigma Si is greater than the length of sigma. So this means that Si is not in the right descent set of sigma. So we have this nice combinatorial description of the right descent set. Now we come to our main result, theorem. The pair consisting of the symmetric group Sn and its generating set consisting of all elementary transpositions is a Coxeter system of type An-1. So the strategy of our proof is as follows. We will check the exchange property, which will prove that this is a Coxeter system due to our characterization theorem. And after that, we need to determine the type, and for this we just need to observe that elementary transpositions commute if they are far away, and the neighboring elementary transpositions satisfy this braid relation, Si plus 1 Si is equal to Si plus 1 Si plus 1 for all I between 1 and n minus 2. So if we can prove that that's a Coxeter system, determination of the type is a very easy exercise. So let us check the exchange property for our pair. Assume that we have elements I, I1, I2 and so on IP in n-1 underlined, such that the length of the product Si1, Si2 and so on Sip Si is strictly smaller than the length of the product Si1, Si2 and so on Sip. Denote by sigma the product Si1, Si2 and so on Sip, and let B be sigma of I and A be sigma of I plus 1. From our assumption that the length of sigma Si is smaller than the length of sigma, we deduce that B is greater than A. So B is to the left of A in the one-line notation of sigma. Of course, B is to the right of A in the one-line notation of E because it's greater than A. Therefore, there exists some number r greater than 1, such that B is to the right of A in the one-line notation of Si1, Si2 and so on Sir minus 1, but B is to the left of A in the one-line notation for Si1, Si2 and so on Sir. So that's a position where B changes from the right to the left with respect to A. Then, if we remove this Sir, the one-line notation for the product Si1 and so on Sip with Sir removed differs from that of sigma by swapping A and B, because we exactly remove the situation when we swap A and B. And that's exactly the exchange property for our pair Sn, S. So we have checked the exchange property and completed the proof of our main theorem. Some additional problems and questions at the end. Problem question 1. Compute inversions for all elements in S3 and S4. Problem question 2. Compute the right descent sets for all elements in S3 and S4. Problem question 3. How does one read off the left descent set from the one-line notation of sigma? Problem question 4. What is the left and right descent sets of the cycle 1, 2 and so on n as an element in Sn? And problem question 5. Compute the lengths of all transpositions in Sn. Thank you very much and see you next time.